I hadn't heard from my daughter for 3 years, until a letter arrived today, and when I held it, my heart felt like it was about to leap out of my chest. As I was about to open it, my wife suddenly shouted, "Hold on!" It caught me off guard, and I asked what the issue was. She pointed carefully at the envelope, her voice full of urgency. "Take a closer look." My hands trembled as I reached for the stack of mail. There was something about that plain white envelope that made my heart race, and it was more than just the familiar handwriting. After 3 years of expecting nothing from the mailbox, I had trained myself not to get my hopes up, but here it was, my name, elegantly penned by Naomi. It was August 31st, her birthday. How had I forgotten? Lifting the envelope to the sunlight streaming in through the window, my eyes followed the curves of each letter. It was postmarked from Naomi's place in Lincoln Park, the very place where everything had gone wrong between us. My chest tightened with a flood of hopes I had tried to bury. "Minnie!" I called out, almost running to our front door. "Minnie, come quickly!" My voice was alive with an unfamiliar energy. The screen door clattered behind me as I clung to the envelope, afraid it might vanish. Minnie appeared in the doorway from the kitchen, her hands still wet from washing dishes. Her sharp gray eyes locked onto the letter I was holding. "What's going on?" she asked, her interest piqued. I held up the letter for her to see, and her expression shifted instantly from annoyance to astonishment. "From Naomi, on today of all days." Minnie moved closer, adjusting her glasses as she peered at the return address. "That's definitely her handwriting," she confirmed, placing a reassuring hand on my arm. "Are you ready for this, Ralph?" I turned over the envelope, feeling its sturdy weight. It wasn't thick, but it was definitely real. On her 38th birthday, Naomi had finally reached out. I spoke my thoughts aloud. Maybe this is the moment. Maybe she wants to reconnect. Sunlight poured through our window, casting a golden glow in the room. Outside, life flowed on as normal. People returning from work, kids playing. But inside, it felt as though everything stood still. Minnie sat beside me, offering a comforting presence. "Whatever lies inside, we'll handle it together," she assured me, as I nodded, battling the knot in my throat. 3 years of unanswered questions, sleepless nights wondering if I'd been too hard on her. 3 years of missing Naomi's laughter, her quick wit, our Sunday chats. That envelope felt heavy with endless possibilities. Could it mean reconciliation, forgiveness, a chance to mend our family? Or more silence, another slammed door? I gingerly laid the envelope on the coffee table between us, suddenly apprehensive. Afraid of what I might discover, afraid of further heartbreak. The quiet stretched until all I could hear was the gentle ticking of the kitchen clock. "She knew I'd be thinking of her today," I finally said. Minnie rested her hand on mine, consoling. "That sounds like her," she replied softly. My thoughts drifted back to old memories, not recent ones, but those from when Naomi was young. How she'd come bounding down the stairs in her pajamas, eyes sparkling with birthday joy before life became complicated, before Ethan, before it all went awry. I carefully picked up the envelope again, noticing the care in her writing. No smudges, no mistakes. She'd poured her heart into this, and it had to mean something good. "I can't remember feeling this nervous in a long time," I admitted. "August 31st, 2022, Minnie gently reminded me. "The day you decided you'd find her and talk." The memory weighed on me like a ton of bricks, that awful day when everything changed between us. But who knows? Maybe today could bring a new beginning. Perhaps this letter would finally start healing the years of brokenness. Holding my breath, I got ready to open the envelope, hoping it was my daughter reaching out. I sat down at the kitchen table with the envelope still sealed in my hands, its weight dragging me back to that September day 3 years ago when my world shifted. I could still see myself outside Naomi's place, fingers trembling by her doorbell, full of turmoil. The doorbell echoed as it mingled with the lively chaos of Lincoln Park. People bustled around, professionals heading home, couples walking their dogs, the city never seeming to pause. I had made the drive with a mission, convinced I could open Naomi's eyes about Ethan. The apartment building let me in without any trouble. When Naomi opened her door, the exhaustion on her face was like nothing I'd seen before. Shadows formed under her eyes, and her typically straight posture slumped ever so slightly. "Dad, what are you doing here?" she asked. "We need to have a talk, sweetheart, about your marriage." Her jaw clenched. "If this is about Ethan again," she began, and I interrupted her. "It is about Ethan, and about you making the worst choice of your life." She stepped back, not inviting me in. "I'm 35 years old. I don't need relationship advice from my dad. When your husband's betting your future away, you do need advice from someone who loves you," I pushed. That's when Ethan walked in, his hand resting on her shoulder in a way that made me uneasy. Too charming, too slick. He was the kind of guy who could sweet-talk you out of every penny and leave you grateful for it. "Ralph," he said warmly, "what brings you here?" "I'm here to talk to Naomi about the casino receipts I spotted in your car last month," I replied. Naomi lost her color. "Were you snooping around?" she asked, stunned. "I was helping move something when the receipts just fell out. The ones showing $200 spent in a single night. How many other nights like that have there been, Naomi?" Ethan's smooth facade cracked briefly, revealing something darker underneath. "That was a work outing," he claimed. "Entertaining clients." "Don't try to fool me," I warned. "I can tell a bad habit from business expenses." Naomi lashed out. "This is my life, my marriage, my choices. When will you stop treating me like a child?" "When you stop acting like one," I shot back. "This guy's ruining your credit and draining your savings." "You don't know anything," she insisted. But deep down, I knew she saw the truth. Her eyes avoided mine, her shoulders tense, Ethan's hold getting fiercer. "What about family, Naomi? Doesn't that mean anything anymore?" "Family?" she said with a bitter laugh. "The family that always questioned me, never supporting my choices?" "We question because we care," I argued. "No, you question because you can't run my life anymore," she fired back. Ethan leaned in, dripping with his fake sincerity. "Maybe you need to step back, Ralph. Let Naomi make her decisions on her own." His manipulation was like part of his DNA. I saw the wall she was building, knowing I couldn't tear it down. "He's right, Dad. I think you should leave," she finally said. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Naomi, please, just consider what I'm saying," I begged. "I've thought long and hard about it, Dad, and I'm choosing my husband over your doubts." The door shut quietly, but to me, the noise roared like thunder. I lingered there, hoping she'd come back, silently wishing the door would open once more. But it didn't. Fast forward 3 years, here I am, sitting in my kitchen, and that feeling of rejection still stings just as badly. The drive home that day seemed never-ending, and the memory of that closing door brought back everything that followed. Years spent unsuccessfully trying to bridge the growing chasm between us. I began calling the very next day, and the day after that. Voicemail after voicemail, message after message, each one seen but ignored. Minnie watched me, pacing around the kitchen as I pressed the phone to my ear, repeatedly going over Naomi's voicemail in my head. "Hey, honey, it's Dad. Sorry about what happened. Maybe we can chat over coffee? Please call me." But that call never came. By October, Ethan started answering her phone. "She doesn't want to talk, Ralph," he'd tell me bluntly. "I want to hear it from her," I insisted. "You already did. when you showed up and upset her. Enough is enough, he'd snap, hanging up. I showed up at her place twice in November. The first time, Ethan stopped me in the lobby, sporting a sharp suit that made my clothes look ragged. "You have to stop," he said, blocking my path to the elevator. "You're causing her stress." "I am?" I asked, dumbfounded. "And what about what you're putting her through?" My words did nothing to crack his smile, though his eyes turned cold. "Careful," he warned. "Harassment is no small matter." The next time was even tougher. He confronted me at my car before I even reached the building. "I warned you," he said, phone in hand. "Show up again, and I'm calling the cops. Naomi wants nothing to do with you." Christmas came, and that was always my job, to find Naomi the perfect gift. That year, I chose a beautiful leather journal with her initials in gold, the kind she adored back in college. It was returned, unopened, with "Return to Sender" stamped on it in bold red letters. Birthday cards suffered the same fate. Mother's Day flowers, too. Every effort I made was like throwing pebbles at a brick wall. Last spring, I gave it one last shot. Nancy told me Naomi's IT firm had relocated downtown, so I took a day off, hoping to catch her at lunch in the lobby. When I finally saw her, surrounded by colleagues near the revolving doors, my heart skipped a beat. She looked worn, thinner, but still as beautiful as ever, still my little girl. "Naomi?" She turned, and for a fleeting moment, there was a glimmer of longing in her eyes before it vanished. "Dad, you shouldn't be here." "Just 5 minutes, please. We used to talk about everything." Her co-workers noticed and slowed, sensing the tension. She stepped closer, her voice low. "Ethan will be irate if he finds out." "Then don't tell him. This is between us." "There is no us anymore," she said, her voice shaky. "I made my choice." "You can unmake it." She shook her head, tears almost spilling over. "It's too late." She walked away, leaving me in a crowded lobby filled with people trying not to watch. That night, I told Minnie it was over, that some cuts were too deep to heal. But holding this unexpected letter now, hope flickered anew. Perhaps I was wrong. Maybe, just maybe, some bridges could be rebuilt. I stood, holding the letter like a precious find, and went to see Minnie. I walked through the kitchen, clutching the envelope to my chest. Minnie sat in her favorite chair by the window, bathed in the afternoon light as she worked on a crossword. "Minnie," I said, my voice barely audible from emotion. She looked over, pencil paused mid-air. "Ralph, you look like you've seen a ghost." "It's better than a ghost," I replied, shaking slightly as I displayed the envelope. "It's from Naomi, today of all days." Her crossword dropped as she rose, disbelief etched on her face. "Are you sure? Look at the handwriting, the way she loops her letters, the cross on her T's." I held it closer for inspection. "She remembered," Minnie murmured. "It's her birthday. She's thinking of us." Adjusting her glasses, she scrutinized the address just like she once analyzed student papers. "It does resemble her writing," she finally agreed, a bittersweet hint in her voice after all those silent years. "Maybe, just maybe, she finally got it. Family's the glue that holds everything together." The optimism in my voice caught me off guard. Could it be that Ethan doesn't have as much hold over her as we feared? She held my hand gently, and her grip felt different. "Oh, Ralph, I really miss her," she said. Her laughter and those calls where she'd share every little achievement at work. "Remember the time she was over the moon about becoming a manager before he turned her against us?" I tried to squash the familiar anger rising in me. Today was for keeping hope alive, not dwelling on old wounds. This letter changed everything. She reached out first. We stood side by side, eyes locked on the envelope, which might just hold our daughter's words of reconciliation. The room felt electric, like the air before a storm ready to clear the skies. "What do you think she's saying?" Minnie murmured. "Could she be pregnant and wants to tell us about a grandchild?" My mind started racing. Maybe she left him, finally seeing what we saw about his gambling issues. Or maybe she just misses her old man. Tears glistened in Minnie's eyes. 38 now, yet she's still the little girl we remember. To hear from you soon. Love, Naomi. I rested the letter on my lap, confusion and disbelief swirling within me. This didn't feel right. It seemed like some scam. Minnie clutched my arm, her eyes filled with shock. "This isn't possible," she sputtered. "Naomi would never just ask for money out of the blue." I nodded, but a small voice in my head suggested we needed to consider all angles. What if she truly was in some kind of bind, no matter how unlikely? "I think we should try to reach out just in case," I said, desperation seeping through. "Even if there's the slightest chance she needs us, we can't ignore it." Minnie nodded, but remained skeptical. "But how do we get in touch? It's been years. No phone number. Nothing." "There's that old email she used," I said, reaching for my laptop. Minnie nodded quickly, ready to hold on to whatever hope we had left. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. What should I even write? My heart thudded with both fear and hope as I started typing. "Naomi, if this is really you, please reply. We need to know you're okay. Love, Dad." With an unsure click, the email was sent off, a digital link reaching out to our long-disconnected daughter. Minnie and I exchanged a glance filled with shared hopes and fears, as if we were perched on a cliff's edge, wondering if our lives were about to shift again. We sat in silence, the clock ticking way too slowly. Minnie kept glancing nervously at the time, her hands restless in her lap. The tension was thick, broken only by the whispering breeze outside. Then a soft alert indicated a new email, snapping us back. I nervously opened it, holding my breath as I scanned the screen for truth in the words appearing before us. It was an urgent plea for a cryptocurrency transfer. The jumbled wallet address looked like gibberish. I looked at Minnie, and she was pale, looking like she'd seen something terrible. The message made it sound like the surgery was scheduled for the next morning, giving us no time. It apologized for the dire outreach, begging for help. Signed off as, "Naomi, your loving daughter." The letter fell onto the coffee table, like a bird that couldn't fly anymore. "This just isn't her," Minnie said instantly. "She's never called you Dad. It's always been Daddy or just your name. And why cryptocurrency?" I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. Naomi's in IT. If she really needed money, she'd ask directly, not through this digital maze. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Even upset, her letters had her personality. This sounds like it came from some random machine. I picked up the letter once more, scouring it for any trace of authenticity, any little mark that screamed it was from her. But there was nothing. There wasn't a single mention of her job or what she'd been up to day to day. Every bit of it felt wrong, like it was a generic cry for cash, designed just to zero in on a father who's worn down by hope and heartache. "Who does this?" I nearly shouted, my voice trembling with anger. "Who targets parents with fake letters claiming to be their kids?" Minnie had moved from shock to critical thinking. "It's someone who knows way too much about us. They knew Naomi's name, our address, the fact we haven't been in touch for a while. None of this happened by chance. But how is that possible? How'd they get her handwriting? And why on her birthday?" Our eyes locked, anxiety settling in. Someone had studied us, figured out the intimate details of our family, and crafted this cruel tactic to hit us deep where it hurts. It felt like more than just a financial con. It was an invasion into our trust and privacy. $15,000. I grumbled as I glanced back at the letter. Did they actually think we'd buy into this? You were beaming when you first got it, Minnie pointed out gently. She didn't have to elaborate. If she hadn't noticed the off-kilter handwriting, I might have been duped. I would have been sent into a frenzy, scrambling to learn how to transfer cryptocurrency, believing I was rescuing my daughter from harm. Whoever concocted this scam was betting on my love, my guilt, the gnawing need to patch things up with Naomi. I need to call her, I said, my mind suddenly made up. I have to make sure she's fine and see if this scam is just the tip of something nastier. Minnie nodded her agreement, a grim resolve in her eyes. And we have to track down whoever's behind this. Heading to the kitchen phone, I felt anger surge through me, energizing my every move. Love twisted against me like this felt like a weapon, but I was determined to fight back. The good old black phone on the counter, a staple of so many family discussions over the years, seemed to welcome my determination. I punched in Naomi's number, a sequence that had been tattooed in my mind for 3 years, even if I hadn't dialed it in all that time. "Please, Naomi, pick up," I whispered, the rings stretching time until voicemail kicked in. Hearing her automated voice, so cool and businesslike, made my heart ache for the loving daughter who used to chat every Sunday without fail. "Naomi, it's Dad. Get in touch as soon as you can. It's super important." I cut the call, quickly redialing, my feet pacing the kitchen floor, Minnie watching me from the doorway. Voicemail again. "Naomi, this can't wait. I need to talk to you right away. Please, sweetheart, call your old man." Calling her sweetheart brought a rush of nostalgia, a stab of better days when she cherished everything I said. By the third try, my hands were trembling, anger and fear turning my insides to knots. "Naomi, someone's using your name for a scam. They sent us a fake letter asking for cash, pretending to be you. I need to be sure you're safe and there's nothing bigger going on. Call me back now." I slammed the phone down harder than I meant to. "She's not answering," I declared to Minnie, though the silence from the other end was answer enough. She could be tied up with work. It's only mid-afternoon on a Saturday. Or what if he controls who she talks to? Doesn't let her pick up calls he hasn't okayed? The possibility closed around my chest like a vice. What if he's pulling the strings on who she can reach out to? Minnie came closer, her hand landing gently on my shoulder. "Watch your blood pressure, Ralph. Don't let this get the better of you." "Of course I'm worked up," I nearly yelled. "Someone purposefully—" "They're taking advantage of our problems just to get money from us, and our daughter won't even speak to her father." Bitterness dripped from those words. 3 long years of frustration had finally come to a boil. "So, what's your plan?" I glanced again at that fake letter lying on the kitchen counter. It was proof of someone's nastiness and deceit. The string of jumbled letters and numbers, that cryptocurrency code, just mocked me with its icy, impersonal nature. So cold, so indifferent. I'm heading over there. "Ralph, don't. Remember what happened the last time? This time's different. I'm not going there to argue about her marriage. I need to let her know someone's pretending to be her for fraud." I picked up the car keys hanging by the back door. She has to know someone's using her identity. But what if she doesn't believe you? What if she thinks you cooked up the whole thing just to have a reason to talk to her? That thought halted me in my tracks. Naomi was clever enough to consider that angle, and after 3 years without a word, she'd rightfully question my motives. But sitting back while someone misused her identity for crime wasn't an option. I'll show her the letter. It doesn't match her handwriting. There's the cryptocurrency scam and the made-up medical emergency that doesn't relate to her life at all. I started toward the garage door. I couldn't just sit and do nothing while they targeted our family. "Be careful, Ralph. Remember what the doctor said about your heart." I stopped at the doorway, holding on to the knob. "My heart's been hurting for 3 years, Minnie. Talking to her won't make it any worse." The afternoon sun shone as I pulled out of the driveway, catching Minnie's worried look through the front window. Getting out of Evanston was easy, but I knew the streets would get busier as I approached the city. A 45-minute drive to Lincoln Park. 45 minutes to mull over my words for the daughter who chose her husband over us, who turned down every attempt I made to make peace, and who might shut me out the second she saw me. But now, her name was being twisted to hurt us, and that was a boundary I couldn't ignore. The engine hummed steadily as I drove onto Lakeshore Drive, where Chicago's towering buildings lined up like a concrete jungle. For a Saturday afternoon, traffic wasn't too bad, leaving me plenty of time to think. The person behind this mess knew well enough about our family troubles. They sent out the letter just ahead of Naomi's birthday, and had nailed her handwriting so well it fooled me at first. This wasn't some random person testing the waters. It was calculated, targeted, and downright cruel. A slowing delivery truck ahead nudged everyone into the left lane. I tapped the steering wheel, watching Lake Michigan spread out endlessly to my right. Gray clouds were gathering over the water, a hint of rain later on. The anger that had fueled my drive slowly mixed with a known sense of doubt. What if Naomi truly doesn't want to see me? What if she accuses me of bothering her, of making up a story to sway her? 3 years without a word had built a gap that might be hard to close. But if I stayed silent, while someone used our family's struggles for money, it seemed even worse. As I got closer to downtown, traffic thickened with the usual weekend crowd heading to Navy Pier and the Magnificent Mile. I took the North Avenue exit, making my way through streets that only got fancier as I entered Lincoln Park. Naomi's neighborhood showed off everything she'd accomplished without us. A successful career, financial independence, a life she'd created by purposefully leaving out the parents who raised her. These townhouses cost more than my engineering salary could earn in 5 years. I'd driven these streets before during past attempts to patch things up, memorizing her path. The brick homes and tidy gardens were the signs of young professionals who'd thrived, belonging to a different social class than their working-class parents. I tightened my grip on the wheel, readying myself for what lay ahead. Best-case scenario, Naomi would hear me out, understand the danger, and maybe thank me for the heads up. Worst case, she'd see it as another unwanted intrusion, another reason to push me away. What if she genuinely had no clue about the letter? It really seemed like the easiest explanation. Why on earth would she scam her own parents? That didn't make any sense at all. But if it wasn't her, then who orchestrated this whole scheme? Ethan was the obvious culprit. But could he really stoop so low as to forge his wife's handwriting just to rip off her parents? As I drove further into Lincoln Park, the busy streets with shops and cafes gave way to quiet, tree-lined roads, full of fancy cars and joggers flaunting their high-end sports gear. This was Naomi's new world, her choice of like-minded urban achievers, folks who probably never encountered the blue-collar struggles I knew all too well. I managed to find a parking spot a couple of blocks from her townhouse, nervously slotting coins into the meter. My hands wouldn't quit shaking. That short walk would buy me some time to gather my thoughts, to figure out how to raise this without sounding like I was accusing her or coming off as desperate. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows along the buildings, and I caught the distant sounds of a neighborhood barbecue and kids playing in a park nearby. Typical Saturday for families who had it all together, I guessed. Naomi's townhouse soon came into view. A classic 3-story red brick structure with chic black shutters and a lively little front garden filled with flowers I couldn't name. It screamed the luxuries she had always wanted, but we couldn't give her when she was growing up. The lights in the front windows told me someone was home. I stopped at the bottom of the stairs, staring at the burgundy door with its brass knocker and a security system panel. It had been 3 long years since I'd last stood outside this door, 3 years since she chose to side with her husband over her father's warnings. My finger hovered over the doorbell, When I finally pressed it, the chime released a posh tune that echoed through the place. I heard quick, familiar footsteps, the kind I'd recognize from her childhood. There was a moment where the peephole darkened, then lightened. Then, with a pause of hesitation, the sound of locks being undone. Naomi appeared, older, yes, but unmistakably still my daughter. Her hair was shorter now, adding an air of elegance that seemed to push me further away. Her dress? It probably cost more than my entire grocery bill for a month. "Dad," she said, her tone neutral. Not welcoming, not hostile, just caught off guard. "Hello, Naomi." We stood there, the 4 feet between us feeling like a chasm, filled with 3 years of silence. She looked healthy, and that was a relief, given that bogus letter about some emergency surgery. "What are you doing here?" she asked. I wasted no time and pulled the letter from my jacket pocket. "Did you write this?" I questioned, watching her closely as her eyes scanned the script that looked so eerily like hers. Her brow furrowed, a mix of genuine confusion and surprise taking over. "I didn't write this," she stated, her gaze snapping back to me. "Where'd you find it?" "It arrived today on your birthday. Naomi, it's been 3 years since I last heard from you. I didn't write this letter," she asserted, her voice steady and tinged with a bit of hurt, like my doubt suggested I didn't know her at all. "Then who did? Who'd pretend to be you asking for money?" "You tell me, Dad. You're the one who brought it," she said defensively. "Naomi, I'm not pointing fingers at you." I tried to keep my tone calm. "I'm just looking out for you. Somebody used your name, forged your handwriting, your identity, to try to trick us out of $15,000, I said, perhaps more sharply than intended. "How convenient," she retorted, going from confused to icy. "Making something like that up just to pop by unannounced?" Make something up. That accusation hit me hard, like a physical blow. Why would I do that? "I don't know. Maybe because you've been hoping to contact me for 3 years, and this seemed like your last option." Over her shoulder, I caught sight of Ethan entering the hallway. He wore what looked like a casual but expensive ensemble, the kind I could only dream of affording. Clearly, this was deliberate. He'd been listening in. "Naomi, who's at the door?" he asked, feigning ignorance. "My father, apparently. Says someone's been sending out fake letters from me, asking for money." Ethan's face looked concerned, but for a split second, something flashed in his eyes, something I couldn't quite decode. "That sounds pretty sketchy. You should probably let the police know, Ralph," he said confidently. "Yeah, maybe I will," I replied, keeping an eye on him for any hint he might recognize something about the letter. It was weird how the amount was exactly $15,000. That's about the kind of money you might drop on a bad night at the casino. Ethan's jaw tightened just a bit. "I don't know much about casinos." "Really, Ethan? You think?" "Enough, Dad." Naomi stepped in closer to her husband, like she was shielding him. "You can't just come in here and start pointing fingers. I'm not accusing anyone, just trying to figure things out." I looked at the two of them, noticing Ethan had a firm grip on Naomi's shoulder, controlling, almost possessive. Somebody had aimed at our family deliberately. Someone who knew us too well. "Your birthday. How you write. Anyone could find that online now," Ethan said, brushing it off. "Oh, is that so? Can they also get Naomi's handwriting like that? Know that she's been out of touch with her parents for 3 years exactly?" "Dad, you need to leave." Naomi's voice didn't waver. "I didn't write this letter, I don't know who did, and I can't help you find out. Can't or won't." "Both." She started closing the door. "Don't come back unless you call first." "I tried calling 3 times. You didn't answer." Maybe that was a hint. The door closed with a solid click, leaving me outside with more questions than answers. I hadn't made any progress besides realizing Naomi really didn't know about the letter. Still, Ethan's response bugged me. Too defensive, too quick to end the talk. I made my way back to the car slowly, the fake letter still in my pocket, feeling like I missed something big. The way the door lock clicked shut told me maybe I should try knocking again. But Naomi was clear. She didn't want to see me, didn't trust me, likely thinking I made the letter up just to reconnect. Each step to my car felt heavier than the last. The sunset, which seemed so promising earlier, now just emphasized my failure. I started the car and drove off, watching Naomi's townhouse fade in the mirror. 3 years waiting for things to get better, and I just made it worse. She probably thinks I'm just a desperate old man making up stories to get in touch. Stuck in slow traffic on Lakeshore Drive gave me too much time to think about our exchange. Something about Ethan's demeanor gnawed at me, yet I couldn't pinpoint what. How he appeared so fast behind Naomi, his voice tense when suggesting we call the cops, that protective hand on her shoulder. Most telling, though, was his flinch when the topic of casinos came up, barely visible but there. After 40 years as an engineer, you learn to detect when things are off. Reaching Evanston, I ended up at Dawes Park instead of heading home, a spot Naomi and I used to frequent. We'd watch the ducks and just chat about everything. Now I sat on a bench by the pond, no ducks around, just peace as dusk fell. I pulled out that fake letter, checking it over again. Naomi was right about the handwriting, not quite right. Yet whoever did this knew enough about our family to aim at us. $15,000, the amount that might cover gambling debts after months of bad luck at Chicago's casinos. Someone who had access to Naomi's handwriting knew we hadn't spoken in years, knew how to pull the right emotional strings. Someone under the same roof as my daughter. The longer I thought about it, the clearer Ethan's actions became. His rush to finish the discussion, his defensiveness on the casino subject, his stance as if to block me from Naomi. He wasn't protecting her from a pushy dad. He was hiding from being found out. A cool breeze stirred through the trees, hinting that autumn was on its way. Change was coming, whether anyone liked it or not. I folded the letter up and placed it in my pocket. Not proof of Naomi's betrayal, but of someone else's desperation and scheming. Someone thinking our family might be his ticket out of a financial mess. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the park began to clear out. Parents rounded up their kids, ready to head home for dinner. These families seemed pretty ordinary, chatting as they went, not weighed down by old silences or the fear of betrayal tearing them apart. That part of life was behind us now. We were long past the kind of normalcy we once had. Our family had been broken, and the distance between us carefully maintained by someone who thrived on keeping us apart. If we ever reunited, it could topple his world. I rose from the park bench, feeling a flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't quite hope, but it was something close, determination. Today, Ethan let slip just enough to tip his hand, counting on me not to notice. As I headed for my car, my mind was abuzz with things I needed to tell Minnie. We'd have to take things slowly and keep a close watch. If Ethan wrote that letter, there had to be other mistakes. Desperate people always make them. The drive back was only 5 minutes, but it felt like moving from darkness into light. For the first time since the divorce, I had something to focus my anger on that wasn't my daughter. 3 days dragged by, filled with talks with Minnie. We hashed over every detail of my encounter with Naomi, every suspicious glance from Ethan. We decided to hang back, letting events unfold naturally, rather than rushing in and causing more harm. Tuesday arrived with a gloomy rain that matched the heaviness in my chest. Minnie was in the kitchen, prepping dinner when the buzzer went at exactly 7. "I'll handle it," I called, assuming it was a neighbor or a delivery. What I didn't expect was seeing my daughter on the doorstep, soaked from the rain and clutching a manila folder. "Naomi?" I blurted out, taken aback. "Dad, I need to talk," she said, her voice trembling. "I found out something terrible." It was clear she'd been crying. Her normally neat hair was hanging limply, and her usually pristine outfit was wrinkled, like they'd been thrown on in a rush. But her eyes, they stopped me cold. They had that same mix of desperation and clarity I'd seen in my own reflection 3 years ago. "Come in, sweetheart. Get in from the rain," I urged, stepping aside. Minnie emerged from the hallway, instantly worried by Naomi's appearance. "Oh, darling, what's happened? Let me get you a towel." Naomi shook off her concern. "I'm fine, Minnie. Just," she said as she nervously opened the folder. "Dad, have a look at these." She spread a pile of papers across the coffee table. From where I stood, their purpose was obvious. Practice sheets filled with handwriting, line after line of copied letter forms. Curious but anxious, I asked, "What am I seeing here?" Her voice shook as she replied, "Practice sheets." Ethan was trying to forge my handwriting. She pointed at a sheet with attempts at her name, address, even fake drafts of the letter I'd received. It was undeniable proof. The truth hit hard. "I discovered these yesterday while looking for insurance documents," she said, stashed away in a folder marked business expenses. Tears welled up, but she brushed them away. "I confronted him last night," Naomi continued. "How did he react?" I asked. "At first, he denied everything, saying they weren't his, maybe even planted there. But when Naomi pushed harder and suggested calling me about the letter, he cracked. He came clean. He's drowning in gambling debts, Dad. Really big ones. He's been at the casino in Hammond a lot, 3, maybe 4 times a week. He owes money to some dangerous people." Suddenly, it all made awful sense. Ethan's jumpiness during my visit, his eagerness for me to leave, his defensive reaction to any mention of gambling. "He used our estrangement to target you," Naomi explained. "He figured you'd be so keen to reconnect with me that you'd send cash without questioning it." "How much does he owe?" I asked. $37,000, she answered. The number hit between us like a punch to the gut. The letter asking for $15,000 was just the beginning. Ethan was planning to get more. The letters just kept rolling in, and each one painted a new picture of a medical emergency. Piece by piece, Ethan used them to scrape together what he needed to settle his debts. I dropped into a chair, the weight of Ethan's betrayal finally hitting me. He wasn't just a terrible husband. He'd been exploiting our family's struggles for his own shady dealings from the start. "Dad, I'm really sorry." Naomi started sobbing again. "You saw right through him 3 years ago. You tried to warn me, but I went with him. He twisted things to make me think you were trying to control me, but all you wanted was to protect me." "Sweetie, stop." "No, please," she cut in. "I need to say this. I should have listened to you. There were signs everywhere. You and Minnie always cared for me and told me the truth, but I tossed that aside because of a manipulator." Minnie sat next to Naomi, wrapping an arm around her. "The important thing is you see it now," she comforted. "I'm going to file for divorce," Naomi declared. "First thing tomorrow. I can't be with someone who'd pretend to be me just to steal from my parents." For the first time in years, I saw Naomi with fresh eyes, not as the headstrong woman who had shut me out, but as the smart, resilient person Minnie and I had raised. She'd been tricked and separated from us, but she was far from broken. "Can you forgive me?" Naomi whispered. I didn't need to say a word. I just opened my arms. She melted into them like a little girl, and after 3 long years, our family felt whole again. "All right, you two," Minnie said, standing up and smoothing her apron. "Let's sort through all this over dinner. I made pot roast. Plenty for everyone." We headed to the kitchen, and I watched Minnie set a third plate on our small table. It seemed such a simple thing, but seeing Naomi back in her old spot, with the comforting smell of food around us, felt almost magical. "I can't believe I let him pull me away from you like that," Naomi said, taking the plate Minnie offered. "It was always something. Visits were difficult, calls never timed right, you both supposedly interfering." "Those who manipulate are very good at that," I reassured her. "It's not your fault for getting tangled up in his lies." "But the red flags were there," Naomi sighed, fiddling with her food without much interest. "Hiding financial stuff, controlling my schedule, always spinning it as me being independent." I reached across the table and held her hand. "What matters is, you finally broke free." "I should have seen it when you warned me back then," she said regretfully. "Should've, could've, would've." Minnie jumped in with her no-nonsense wisdom. "Focus on moving forward now." I got up to grab the matches from the kitchen drawer. "Speaking of moving forward, there's something we ought to do," I said, pulling out that crumpled letter that had caused us so much pain. It had done enough damage. Naomi immediately got what I meant and nodded. We gathered around the sink, and I struck a match, setting the flame to one edge of the letter. It caught quickly, twisting and blackening as it burned. "Good riddance," Naomi muttered, watching Ethan's lies vanish down the drain. With the letter gone, Minnie returned with a hefty photo album from the living room, packed with pictures from Naomi's childhood. She opened it to a snapshot of an 8-year-old Naomi at a Cubs game, her toothy grin between us. "Remember this day?" Minnie asked. "You wanted a hot dog every inning. And Dad bought them even though I only ate half each time." Naomi laughed, real laughter after so long. For the next hour we flipped through photos, talking about birthdays, Christmases, family trips, and lazy Sundays. Each picture was a reminder that our family had always been filled with love and closeness, a bond that no manipulation could ever really break. "I've really missed this," Naomi said softly, as she lightly touched a picture of herself at 16, caught on camera mid-eye roll, probably reacting to something I once said. "I long for parents who genuinely cared for me, not just looking out for themselves." I reassured her, "You'll always have that here with us. No more long years of distance. From now on, we'll keep in touch, no matter what." "Never again," she vowed. "And Dad, I'm going to write you a real letter next week when things settle down. A handwritten one, sharing everything I've been wanting to say for the last 3 years." This change was exactly what we needed. Moving away from conversations just for show and financial reasons, we began communicating from the heart to rebuild our love, like everything was finally falling into place. "So, what's the plan with Ethan?" Minnie asked, bringing up the next matter on the agenda. "Where will you stay while the divorce is happening?" Naomi answered, "I've already left. Right now I'm in a hotel, but I was wondering." She looked between us, a hint of uncertainty in her eyes. "Could I stay in my old room for a few weeks until I find a new place?" "Sweetheart, this is always your home," I assured her. "It's never stopped being your home. We just lost touch for a while." As we worked together clearing the dinner table, the three of us slid back into the rhythm of family life. It was amazing how quickly those familiar connections returned, as if the past 3 years of disconnect were just a bad dream, washed away by honesty and openness. Later, when Naomi was settling back into her old room, I stood watching her as she put her things away. She seemed younger, as if losing the weight of a marriage built on lies had lightened her spirit. "Thank you for never giving up on me," she whispered. "Never," I told her. "Family means sticking together no matter what. That's what family is all about." As the rain continued to pour outside, it felt like everything was being washed clean, ready for a fresh beginning.